Hello, IM1 students. We're going to go through your Unit 2, Part 2 exam review. All right, let's start off with number 1. We want to write an equation in slope-intercept form. Well, we are in luck. We have a graph. We can find our slope right here by counting rise over run. Remember, that's your slope. My rise is I'm going down 1. And my run is I'm going over or to the right 4. So my slope is -1/4. And my y-intercept is given to me. It's where we intersect the y-axis, and that's at 3. So if I want to write an equation in the y equals mx plus b form, I have all of those elements, and I can go ahead and do that now by saying y equals -1/4 x plus 3. All right, let's go to the next one. Same procedure. Remember, your slope is rise over run. But in this problem, you have to be a little careful because if you notice, our graph is increasing by 2 at a time. So an entire box is 2 units, and half a box would be 1 unit. So let's check this out, what our slope is. We are rising 1, 2, 3, and running 1, 2, 3, 4. So our slope is 3/4. And our y-intercept is not defined for us, but we can go ahead and go see it right here at 0, -2. So with both of those elements, we can write the equation y equals 3/4 x minus 2. All right, question number 3. First step to write an equation is you need to find that slope. So we're going to label our points x1, y1, and x2, y2, and start off with that process. The slope is equal to y2, -1, minus y1, -4, over x2, 3, minus x1, 7. -1 minus a -4 is the same as -1 plus 4, which is 3, over 3 minus 7, which is -4. All right, if at any time you are uncomfortable with a fraction, you can always turn it into a decimal, which this is a -0.75. Since neither one of these points provided for us is an y-intercept, x is not 0 for either one, we need to plug it into the point slope form first, which if you recall is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and then solve for y. You can choose either point and you will get the same result. I'm going to just use the first one. So y plus 4 equals -0.75 x minus 7. When I distribute that 0.75 inside my parentheses, I'm going to get an unchanged left-hand side and -0.75x and a positive 5.25 when I say -0.75 times -7. Last step to getting y by itself is subtracting 4 from both sides, and I would get y equals -0.75x plus 1.25 as my final answer. So don't worry, when you get a fraction and you know you're gonna have to solve, if you're uncomfortable with that, make it a decimal and use your calculator. That is always an option and always allowed. All right, question 4. We have function notation here. We need to write our 2 points as coordinates. So my first point is 10, 5, and my second point is 2, -3. Just like the problem before, our first step is to find the slope between these 2 points. So I could do that by saying y2, -3, minus y1 5 over x2, 2, minus x1, 10. Negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8 over 2 minus 10, which is also negative 8. Negative 8 divided by negative 8 is 1. So I have a slope of 1. Considering neither one of these points are y-intercepts, I have to use my slope-intercept form first to solve for, or my point-slope form first, sorry, to solve for y and get it in slope-intercept form. So let's do that. Y minus 5 equals m, which is 1, times x minus x1, which is 10. Well, 1 times x and 1 times negative 10, nothing happens. It stays the same. And to get y by itself, I add 5 to both sides, and we'll get y equals x minus 5 as our final answer. Perfect. Moving on. For question 5, we are given 6 graphs with 6 different possibilities for an R value. The first thing you want to do is you want to go through and identify whether the correlation is positive or negative for each graph. So for graph A, since the points are increasing, I've got a positive correlation. Graph B, the points are decreasing, it's negative. C, a positive correlation. D, a negative correlation. E, a positive correlation. And F seems to be kind of all over the place, so there does not seem to be any correlation. Now I can turn my attention to my specific R values. I have 3 positive R values, 2 negative R values, and an R value of 0, which we can already assign to graph F since we determined this graph has no correlation. Between the 2 negative graphs, I can determine which one has a stronger linear pattern. So which set of points look more closely like a line. And we would determine that graph D's points seem to be more grouped together. Therefore, it would have a correlation coefficient closer to a perfect negative linear relationship, which would be negative 1. So R equaling negative 0.85 is more reasonable for D than it is for B. So we can conclude B would equal negative 0.40. Now, turning my attention to my positive graphs, between graph A, E, and C, which one is the most linear? I can determine that's graph C, and I would give it a correlation coefficient of 0.99. With 2 more options left and 2 more graphs left, I can determine which graph has a stronger linear correlation, and we would determine that would be A. So I could give that graph the next highest correlation coefficient of 0.90, leaving E with the smallest positive correlation coefficient of 0.50, which makes sense because it is looking pretty loosely correlated. Okay. Question number 6, it says, the scatter plot shows the roasting times in hours and weights in pounds of 7 turkeys for Thanksgiving. Is the correlation positive, negative, or none? This is a positive correlation. So this tells us the bigger in weight your turkey is, the longer roasting time. So the more weight, the longer the roasting time. It says sketch a line of best fit. So at this point, you are going to choose 2 points that seem like a good fit to you. These do not have to be my same 2 points. These can be any 2 points that you feel are appropriate. I'm going to choose this point, 3, 8, nope, sorry, my mistake, 8, 3. this point right here, 25.5. And you can choose any 2 points you want for this problem that fit the direction and the trend of the data. It's really hard to draw a straight line on this iPad, on this app. You could have also used point, well, this is kind of more of an estimate, so this might not be an ideal point. You could have used this one if you wanted to. Any 2 points that fit the direction of the trend of the data are a good choice. Okay, so answers may vary here. Here's just one option. From your line, what is the roasting time for a 12-pound turkey? And so this is telling me that I don't necessarily have to go calculate out the line of best fit. I can just look at my line and read my graph. So I can say for a 12-pound turkey, and this is all an estimate, about how long is it going to take? It's going to take a little bit less than, or very close to, 4 hours. So we can say about 4 hours. Because of the app I'm on, I can't draw a perfectly straight line, but again, we're just estimating. So let's say right here, it seems to be about 4 hours. It says, question D, from your line, what is the weight of a turkey that has a roasting time of 5.5 hours? So we can read over on our graph and estimate for 5.5 hours. Oops. We can say for 5.5 hours, our turkey weighed about 20 pounds. And again, these are all estimates. We're using our line of best fit. We aren't even calculating. We're just looking at the graph to make a good informed decision. So about 20 pounds. All right, moving on. So question 7. The table shows a scatter plot of Y pineapple plants in a garden X years since 2004. Create a scatter plot of the data. All right, so right now I'm going to give you the opportunity to pause this video, label your x-axis, label your y-axis appropriately, and plot your data points. All right, so take a second to check out my graph. I went by 1s on my x-axis and labeled it number of years since 2004. I went by 2s on my y-axis and labeled it number of pineapple plants. All right. So let's answer these questions about this scatter plot. The correlation coefficient is 0.996. What does this mean? And here's the key words that you need to say. This tells me that there is a strong, because we're greater than 0.80, positive, linear correlation between X, which is the number of years since 2004, and Y, which is our number of pineapple plants. All right, we're given 2 points to choose from. So we're given the points 3, 7, and 8, 16. So 3, 7, and 8, 16 to draw a line of best fit on. Or the points 7, 15, and 8, 16. So 7, 15, and 8, 16. So we're asked which one do you think is most appropriate, And it would appear to be that the first set of points is most appropriate since it describes the direction of the trend. And we have more points on the line. So now we're going to calculate that line of best fit using those points. And remember, first step of calculating a line, the equation of a line is the slope. So let's do this. x1, y1, x2, y2. We're going to take 16 minus 7 over 8 minus 3. 16 minus 7 is 9, and 8 minus 3 is 5. 9 divided by 5 gives us 1.8. We may not be comfortable working with this fraction, so we can go ahead and make it into a decimal. All right, we're going to choose one of these 2 points to write our equation with. Since neither one is a y-intercept, we're going to use slope-intercept form first and solve for y. So we can say y minus 7 equals 1.8 times x minus 3. Our next step to solving this equation is to distribute in 1.8. And we'll get y minus 7 equals 1.8x, and 1.8 times 3 is 5.4. When we add 7 to both sides, our final equation is y equals 1.8x plus 2.4. Okie dokie. So it says, interpret the slope in context. The slope of our line is 1.8 over 1. So 1.8 over 1. Remember, this is your change in y over your change in x. So what we're saying is for every 1 increase in x, what happens to y? Okay? So for every year that goes by, of course this is after 2004. So for every 1 year that goes by after 2004, the number of pineapple plants will increase by 1.8. So remember the key here is for every 1 change in x, what happens to y? For every 1 change in x, what happens to y? Here we have a positive slope, so both are increasing. As the years increase, the number of pineapple plants increase. All right. Letter F says interpret the y-intercept of your line in context. Our y-intercept is 0 to 0.4. So when the number of years since 2004 is 0, or x is 0, what's going on with y? So number of years since 2004 is 0. I have 2.4 pineapple plants. So this tells me in 2004, there were 2.4 pineapple plants. And remember, your y-intercept is often referred to as your initial value. So this is what we started off with in year 2004. Using your line of best fit, how many pineapples would you expect to be in the garden in 2005? Okay, so we're going to use our equation. Y equals 1.8x plus 2.4 to find out the number of pineapples in 2009. Remember, x is the number of years since 2004. So for 2009, that is 5 years since 2004. So we would plug in x equals 5 into our equation. So y equals 1.8 times 5 plus 2.4. You can get your calculator and figure out that 1.8 times 5 is 9 plus 2.4 is 11.4. So we would expect 11.4 pineapples in the garden in 2009. That is our prediction based off of our line of best fit. H. Using your line of best fit to predict how many years have gone by since 2004, if there are 13 pineapples in the garden, round to the nearest 10th. All right, so now I know the number of pineapples, which is 13. The number of pineapples is represented by y, so I'm looking at y equaling 13. And I'm going to plug that into my equation this time and solve for x. So 13 equals 1.8x plus 2.4. We can subtract 2.4 from each side. And you can definitely use your calculator to say that 13 minus 2.4 is 10.6 equals 1.8x. We can divide each side by 1.8, and we will get that x is equal to approximately 5.89. So, how many years have gone by since 2004 if there are 13 pineapples in the garden? We can estimate 5.89 years have gone by if there are 13 pineapples in the garden. Okay, guys. So remember, it's really important for your test that you know how to appropriately interpret your slope in context, also your y-intercept, and don't forget that calculating a line of best fit or any line is also very, very important to you in this upcoming exam. If you have any questions, please save them for your teacher and attend office hours before your exam to get them all answered. Have a wonderful day. Bye.